vault station, which had one vault.
And when you taught your 18 to 2-month-old class, would they be involved in working on those equipments?
A little bit, yeah, they did, but their parents were with them the entire time, and I was also there, so they didn't do anything alone.
Were kids allowed out on the floor in that 18 to 2-year-old class without their parents?
No, ma'am.
What about without a teacher?
No.
On occasions, would you have kids that would get on the floor that did not have permission to be on the floor?
If at any time a kid ran out onto the floor, we sent them right back to their parent, or we would find them their parent and have them sit with them. They weren't allowed on the floor.
And I'm showing what's been marked as State's Exhibit 191 through 196. If you could look through those and let me know if you recognize them. Do you recognize those?
Yes, ma'am.
And what are they?
It's the gym. It's the preschool area in the gym.
And do they fairly and accurately depict the gym?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I asked that State's Exhibit 191 through 196 be admitted.
I'm going to object to the extent that it's not a true and accurate representation of the gym as it was back then. Our pictures that were taken back then show different placement in different bars.
Am I allowed to say something?
I'm sorry.
Am I allowed to say something?
The photograph.
That's subjection. Your response.
Do you recognize these photographs as being fairly depicting what the gym looked like in 2015?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would you change around the equipment for various classes?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd ask that State's Exhibit 191 through 196 be admitted into evidence.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Behind you, this is State's 191. Can you describe what we're looking at here in State's 191?
That is the,
And I think there's a pointer up here, or either a laser.
oh, this?
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to point it?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. How's the word? Oh, okay, so this was the, this is where I would be. So the kids would go in a full rotation, and I would stand here because this part was the more, this could be potentially more dangerous. So this is where I would help them, and then other than that, they would go along these little floor beams on the side just to stay in a rotation. So they would stay engaged.
And State's number 192, what are we looking at here?
This is the vault, so they would go this way. They would all line up here. I would stand down here. They would run down the vault, jump, land, and then they would go this way, and they would do these smaller activities just, again, so that they stay in rotation, that they stay focused.
In the very back, you see that ladder back there?
Yes, ma'am.
Right here.
That?
Was that part of the rotation that your kids would have been involved in, the 18 to 2-year-olds or the 3 to 4-year-olds?
No, ma'am, not unless I took them over there as a group, and I would hold them and let them go up and down the ladder. But that was like a special activity we sometimes did if we had extra time in class.
And what's that ladder made out of?
Wood.
And what are we looking at in State's Exhibit 190?
From about here over, this like line right here, this was preschool. So we didn't do anything with this. But there's the bars. That was also part of their rotation. So they would either start here and they would either grip the bar and swing. Over here it could be something like grip the bar and try to lift your feet up. Something like that.
And what age group of kids would be doing that activity?
They would usually do that when they were 3 or 4. The 18 months to 2 years old, They could like pretend to do it if their parents were holding them,
Okay.
but they never did it on their own.
And State's Exhibit number 194, what are we looking at here?
This is like a parent viewing area, so parents could sit here, students could sit here, but it was, there was that barrier to try to separate the gym from where the parents could sit.
And with that barrier, you're talking about the roping that's there?
Yes, ma'am.
In State's number 195, what's depicted here?
This is just the other half of the gym. This is where the team and like rec classes and stuff would do their classes. The foam pit's over there. But we didn't go past, my preschool classes didn't go past this over here.
So would there be a reason for the preschoolers to be back over on this other side where the higher bars were?
No, ma'am, not unless we went to the pit, which was right here, and we would usually only do that if I had a class of like 3 or less, and I could keep them all in one little place, and the gym was significantly empty.
In State's 196, what is depicted in State's?
So this is the other, oops,
Sorry.
you're fine. This is the other half of the beam station. So right here, they can maybe walk across this, do a bear crawl here, you know, hop over some like little individuals here, and then this is where I would be to help them again.
And what, in State's Exhibit 196, this slide here, how would that be part of the rotation?
So that's like a filler. So we would have, right here is where we would do like a front roll, which would be like what we would be working on. So we'd have one main thing we were working on, and it would be like a front roll for the week. The other activities here are just to keep them in rotation so that they could go up the slide and go down, and by the time they come off, they'd be ready to stay in line.
And then State's Exhibit 197, what's depicted in that?
This is just the floor of the gym where the rec classes and stuff take place, the older classes.
Now, did you have an occasion to teach Millie Place, or Millie Rosenbaum as she was registered?
Yes.
Thank you, the lights can come back up. And do you recall when that was that you taught classes with Millie?
It was fall of 2015, so I believe it was September, October time.
And what days would Millie take class?
She had class Mondays,
And how long was that class?
55 minutes.
And did you take roll for that class?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm showing you what's already been marked as State's Exhibit 190 and admitted into evidence. What are we looking at here?
That's one of my roll sheets.
Okay, is that your name at the top?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you see Millie's name?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell me, based on that attendance roll, what days did Millie attend?
Where all the check marks are.
Okay, well, can you just tell me those dates for the week?
Oh, yeah. Let me see. 9/28, 10/5, 10/12, and 10/19.
This is the second page.
11/2, 11/9, and I'm sorry, just 11/2. She didn't come those 2 days.
So where there's an X on the State's Exhibit 190, what does that indicate?
That she wasn't in class.
And you would have made those notations?
Yes, ma'am.
How would you describe Millie when she was in your class? What type of little girl was she?
She was very sweet.
Did you ever have any issues or behavioral issues with Millie while she was in your class?
She was very well behaved.
Did you ever have any issues with her running off and being involved or getting on any of the equipment that she was not allowed to?
No.
Do you recall who Millie would attend classes with?
She had class with Macy,
Okay.
another little girl.
Did you have any other kids in your class?
No. I want to say when she was coming, it was down to like just her and another girl in that class.
Okay. All right. And I just want to show you what's been issued to evidence in State's Exhibit 123. Do you recognize who that is?
Yes.
Okay. Who's that?
That's me and Millie.
Okay. And that ladder that we talked about earlier over there, did you ever have an issue with Millie going over and getting on that ladder without your permission?
No.
Do Do you recall it during your class, did y'all ever, you said that would be like a special activity, if at any time you guys went over and used that ladder as part of that special activity?
We have, yeah, we did.
Were there any incidents, do you recall, if Millie ever fell off or fell down or had any issues on that equipment, that ladder?
No, I don't recall. I don't think so.
If she had, let me ask you, when Millie was in your class, did you ever have any instance where she got hurt?
No, not in my class.
If she had gotten hurt in your class, what would you have done?
We would file an injury report.
And during the time that Millie was in your class, did you ever have to file an injury report concerning Millie?
No.
And I think I asked you, who would bring Millie to class?
Ms. Rosenbaum.
And did you know Ms. Rosenbaum prior to Millie attending Gym Tech?
No.
Did you ever have any interaction or conversation with Ms. Rosenbaum?
A few times.
Okay. And what would you be talking with her about?
Usually just about Millie in class. And I just remember one conversation we talked about her family being from South Dakota, because my family also is from South Dakota.
And do you recall Millie's last class with you?
Like the date?
The date, yes.
I don't know the date off the top of my head.
If the last date you have checked off on this roll sheet is November, let me look at that. November 2nd.
Then that would have been it then.
Do you recall anything that sticks out in your mind about the last time Millie attended your class?
Yes.
Can you tell me what that was?
She had a very large bruise on her face and on her eye.
And when you saw that bruise, what did you do?
It was significant enough that I was like, oh my God, like what happened? And I asked her, and she said, oh, I fell getting out of the bathtub.
Did you ask her any more questions about that fall?
I asked her again later when we were alone, like we were kind of away from her foster parents, I suppose.
So let me ask you, the first time you asked her, who was present?
It was me, Millie, Macy, and her, Miss Rosenbaum was in the general vicinity, so I moved away later and I asked her again. I said, what happened? How did you get that huge bruise? And she said, I fell getting out of the bathtub.
Why did you feel the need to ask her a second time?
It was a very large bruise. It was huge.
And you said her foster parent. How did you know that Ms. Rosenbaum was her foster parent?
I actually wasn't made aware of that until after the incidents have occurred.
So prior to that, who did you think Ms. Rosenbaum was to Millie?
Her mother.
And to your understanding, what was the name that she was registered to attend Gym Tech under?
Rosenbaum.
During the time, you said you taught at Gym Tech for about 3 or 4 years. During the time that you were teaching, have you ever had a child to get injured?
No, not significant.
What type of injuries have you seen?
Maybe they tripped and skinned a knee on the carpet, something like that. Nothing, no broken bones, nothing.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Herrington, you wouldn't speak to us, correct?
Ma'am?
When we called you, you did not want to speak to us, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Now, with regards to this conversation that you had with Millie about her face, there being a bruise on her face, did you tell that to the police?
I did not.
You did not mention that to the police, but you did give a statement to the police, didn't you?
Yes.
And you never mentioned to them this conversation, did you?
I did tell them. I told the police when they asked me about if I'd ever seen any bruises on the girls. I told them that I'd seen a bruise on Millie.
And who did you tell the police?
Who did I tell?
Yes.
Whoever was, I told the police.
You don't know who it was?
No, I don't remember.
You don't remember if it was Detective Thompson?
I'm not entirely, I honestly don't remember the name. It was a few years ago.
And you told them that you had seen a bruise that was large enough that you thought it was significant?
Yes, ma'am.
Shelley, did you call the police at that time, at the time you saw the bruise?
I did not.
Did you talk to Miss Matheson about that?
I did not.
Did you call defects?
I did not.
I'm sure you were marked as Defendants Exhibit 59. See if you can identify that.
Mm-hmm.
What is that a picture of?
That's me and Millie and Macy.
And Macy.
Yes.
At this time, I would tender Defendants Exhibit 59, which was taken on October 12, 2015.
No objection.
Admitted.
Tell us which one is Millie and which one is Macy?
Millie is the little one with the black and green. And Macy is in the pink.
Nothing further to say at this time.
Ms. Herrington, how old were you back in 2015?
I was 16.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You can step down and you're excused, unless there's an objection.
Nothing to say, ma'am.
Any objection from the defense?
No, I just asked that she remain available for the call. We've got another witness that's going to testify, and we may have questions.
All right. Ma'am, what this means is that you're being released today from these proceedings, but you may be called back at some point later. And so just make sure that you're available, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Let me tell our pool provider, our pool coverage provider, that if there is a question from the media, you can just write it down on a piece of paper, give it to the sheriff's deputy, who will then send it to me, okay? If we can handle it that way, it allows me to give you a more timely response.
Thank you, call Maria Matheson.
Ms. Matheson.
Ma'am, can you please raise your right hand? Please, do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth and the whole truth so help you God?
Yes, I do.
You can lower your hand and please state and spell your first and last name. You can have a seat.
Maria Matheson, M-A-R-I-A-M-A-T-H-E-S-O-N.
And Ms. Matheson, are you familiar with Gym Tech?
Yes, I am.
How are you familiar with Gym Tech?
I am the owner of Gym Tech.
And how long have you owned Gym Tech?
10 years.
And do you have a background in gymnastics?
Yes, I do.
What's your background?
I took tumbling and gymnastics when I was growing up, and I've done coach gymnastics for the last 18 years and done training under USAG.
What's USAG?
USAG governs the Olympics for gymnastics. I'm a safety certified professional member and preschool fundamentals 1 and 2 certified trained.
Prior to owning Gym Tech or now, did you own any other, businesses that involve teaching gymnastics?
Yes, I helped run a mobile gymnastics program called Gym Kids Express here in Henry County, and I helped to run that for a few years.
How long did you run that?
I believe about 5 years.
And can you tell me a little bit about how that program worked?
Gym Kids Express was a mobile gymnastics program. We went around to daycare and childcare facilities, and we coached ages 3 and 4 inside the daycares or private schools.
Did that involve working with kids using equipment at all?
Yes, ma'am. So we would take in our own equipment, and we would run classes within the facility.
What type of equipment would you take in?
Balance beams, preschool fundamental equipment like tunnels, wedge mats where you could do forward roll, backward rolls. We would take in like a low bar where they could just learn how to grip onto a bar, which is like a little floor bar. And panel mats where they could just do like forward rolls and tumbling on.
Did you ever have occasion during the course of time that you were doing the mobile gym where you had a child to be injured?
No, ma'am.
And besides teaching gymnastics at Gym Tech, do you have any other gymnastic teams or competitive teams or anything of that nature?
Yes, ma'am. We have a competitive women's gymnastics team and a competitive men's gymnastics team.
At what age do kids get involved in, I guess, the competitive gymnastics?
They can start training in a invite-only class at age 4. And then they actually don't start competing until age 5.
And what type of equipment would someone, let's say if they're 4, would be utilizing if they were on the competition team?
They would be utilizing more of our preschool area equipment, still working with the preschool bars, the balance beam. They may go to the beams, but they would be lowered down for that age group. They would also vault, but on a preschool vault board.
And if you were 2 years old, would you be involved in a competitive gymnastics team?
No, ma'am. For the age 2, we only offer a parent and taught class, which is a parent-assisted class. So the parent has to remain with the child during the class.
And I'm showing you what's been entered into the State's Exhibit number 192, and you can see it behind you. Is that the vault you were just talking about?
Yes, ma'am. That's a preschool vault.
And in your gym, are there certain safety precautions that you take?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us about those?
Well, we take safety precautions as far as making sure that there's mats in the proper place on the equipment. Make sure we do an equipment check, that the bars are stable, everything's locked in. There's screws when you adjust the bars that you have to, or knobs, you have to make sure you tighten the bars up. Just making sure mats and everything are properly placed as far as when you're talking about training on the equipment.
And can you tell me about the mats? Kind of like how are the mats made? What are the mats like in your gym?
Well, we do have the squared foam mats that you piece together. And then underneath, if you were on a bar, you would have another mat up underneath that bar on top of those mats as well.
Okay. And I'm going to show you. It states Exhibit 191. Do you see kind of that setup where you're talking about the bars and the mats?
Yeah, so if you look at this bar right here, that's about a 4-inch mat that is up underneath that bar. And the other bar is probably about a 1 to 2-inch mat up underneath that bar. And then of course you can see the length of the bar is making sure that it's covered enough in front of the bar and covered enough behind the bar.
And what about any other, do you know what the thickness of those mats are that are utilized at your
The
gym?
one is a 4-inch mat and the other one's about a 2-inch mat.
Okay. And what about those foam puzzle pieces?
The puzzle pieces are probably only about maybe 1 inch thick.
And let me ask you in regards to taking precautions, how does the setup for a class go? Does it once it's set up, does it remain the same or does that change, and who does it and how?
Typically, it stays, the setup at the gym stays the same with the mats. The coaches, we do 7-to-1 ratio, so no more than 7 students to 1 coach. They are set up in rotation circuits, so there's a lesson plan for each week, and they receive that lesson plan, and there's a circuit. So, for instance, you took it down.
I
There
can
would
put
be
it back up.
okay.
If that's helpful to you.
So if you see right there, that's a beam circuit. So if where the higher beam is would be a coach would be there because that's a higher, more difficult skill.
And I'm going to hand you this.
Sorry.
You press that little button and it makes that little red laser come on.
Okay.
Press it at the top.
Oh, press at the top. Thank you. Okay. Not sure if I have it right here. There we go. Okay, so this is a higher beam. So this is going to be a coach-assisted skill, meaning the coach is going to be right here, assisting the athlete across the beam so that there's no injury, just because this beam is raised up a little bit higher, so you can catch if there was a fall or anything like that. And then they're going to go down over here, and they're going to do another skill on this beam. And you can't see in the picture, but there's another beam that runs across that way, and then the beam that comes this way. So the coach would be here assisting the child across, watching this area, and they would go around and come back up the stairs and go. That would be a circuit, a station. Okay.
And you said your ratio is 7 to 1.
7 to 1.
Okay. And what about the training, any other safety precautions that you take as far as the gym equipment is concerned?
As far as the gym equipment is concerned, it's just always making sure that the coaches know to come in, make sure the mats are placed properly, the beams are where they are, the mats are up underneath the beam, checking the bar. Usually coaches aren't adjusting the bar. Typically it's set up for their class for that circuit for the day.
And how often are those safety precautions taken as far as making sure the bars are locked, the mats are in place? How often does that happen?
Every class, every day as they come in.
Okay. And what about training for your staff? What type of training do you provide for your coaches?
So I'm preschool fundamentals certified trained in preschool fundamentals 1 and 2. And then I have a partner that works with me that is a national judge under USAG. So we've also attended the World Congress training that USA Gymnastics offers. And then we bring that in with our staff. We've also had from time to time, they come to our facility and have offered training at our facility, which is preschool fundamentals 1 and 2 certification, proper ways to coach, safety certifications, those type things.
And are you familiar with someone by the name of Natalie Herrington?
I am.
Would she have gone through that training as part of being an employee with your gym?
Yeah, so she would have gone through training. We start training, we do a full extensive training in the summer before we start our fall session. Mm-hmm. And we do another coaches staff meeting. We do training again, usually around December before we go into our springtime training. And then we've also had, like I said, I believe Natalie did participate in when we had the outside certified coaches come in, and they do where you receive a certificate for participating in a preschool fundamental training class.
And are you familiar with Michaela Stone?
Yes, ma'am.
And who's Michaela Stone?
Michaela is one of my coaches as well.
Would she have also gone through this training that you just described?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let me ask you, in regards to injuries at your gym, have you ever had occasion to have a child injured at the gym?
Yes, we've had children to be injured.
Okay. And what is the process and procedure if a child is injured?
There is a injury report, and they are to fill out the injury report, and then the injury report has to also be signed by the parent and the coach.
Okay. And when you talk about injuries, how many injuries would you say you've had at your gym?
Well, it depends on what type of injury you're asking.
Let me start there. What types of injuries have you seen happen with kids at your gym?
We've seen anything from a knee scrape to I've seen more injuries with our competitive gymnasts that have actually had like a break. Talking more on the competitive side.
Let's talk about your kids that are in your mommy and tot class.
Yes.
Any injuries there, and if so, what type?
No injuries in a parent tot class.
And what about the 3 to 4 year old class?
3-year-old 4 class, nothing other than maybe a knee scrape or a fall down and maybe a child complaint. But even if it's a fall and a complaint that's made by the child, or they say, oh, I hurt my arm, or I hurt this, I hurt that, the coaches are still required to fill out an injury report, because we can't tell if there's an injury there or not specifically. So they're still required to document it down so that we have it on file. And we're required to do that by our insurance as well.
Okay. And when, as far as your mommy and me class, how often would those classes be run at the gym? Let's say back in 2015 specifically, how many mommy and
during
tot
that
classes?
time, we only had one parent and tot class.
Okay. And on what days was that class held?
I believe on Monday we had a parent and tot class on Mondays.
And if a parent was interested in having their child attend, what procedures did they have to go through to participate in a class, even for the mommy and tot class?
Okay, so we offer free trial classes. Anytime you come in for a class, you have to check in with the front office, sign a waiver form, give your information, and then they can participate in a class.
And I think we talked about this equipment, these bars, for a parent and tot class, these bars here. Would kids be participating or be involved in using that particular equipment?
Yes, they could be. So at a parent and tot, really actually a child's hand cannot really fully grip around the bar. But what we do is teach them to do a reach to the bar and try to grip onto the bar. And then we would have them like do something as maybe try to pull their knees up. And we usually instruct and show the parents that they're just going to try to lift their feet up off of the bar, which is kind of working that core area. Most children at that age are still trying to figure out how to use their core. So that's really what that is for. We also would show the parent that they could put their arm up underneath the toddler and just kind of try to do a swinging motion. But you really have to hold on to them because they're really not, their hands are not large enough to fully grip around that bar.
Okay. Do you know what would the height of those bars be set at for a parent and tot class?
Somewhere around 40 to 45 inches from the ground up. If you went from the bar up, or it would depend on the mat. So if the mat's under there, it might be around 42 inches with the mat. So it depends on if you're counting it from the bar, from the floor where the base is to the top of the bar, or if you're going from the mat to the top of the bar.
So let's say from the mat.
I'd say 40 to 45 inches.
Okay.
Probably
From the-
somewhere in there.
From the mat to the bar.
Yeah.
Is-
But the goal is to make sure that the child can stand on their feet and hold the bar from their feet.
Okay.
Nothing
And-
above.
And are children or parents allowed to, let me ask you, are children allowed to be out on the mats or on the floor or any equipment without a coach or a staff member from Gym Tech?
No, ma'am. They must be enrolled in a class in order to be out on the floor.
Have you had occasions where kids would run out, say they're there with a sibling, and run out and get on the equipment or anything of that nature?
Of course we have, and we have all the coaches and staff are instructed to immediately let them know that if they're not involved in a class, you must step off of the floor. And that's a continued process and watch at the gym. I usually have several coaches there, so everybody knows, if you don't see them actively involved in a class, then they shouldn't be just freely running around the gym.
Would parents and children have access to the inside of the gym and be on the mats without a staff member being inside that gym area?
No, ma'am, they should not be.
And in 2015, did you have a free play?
We had an open gym play.
Open gym, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And to your knowledge, do you know if Millie Place, Rosenbaum, or Layla Daniel ever participated in your free play or open play?
Not of my knowledge. I didn't have any record of either one of them attending open gym play.
Okay. Do you recall ever having any interaction with Layla Daniel?
Yes, I do.
And what about Millie Rosenbaum Place?
Not any really interaction with Millie other than just visually seeing her in a class.
And were you working on October the 19th of 2015?
Yes,
And to your knowledge, what day of the week was that?
Monday.
And was Millie Place, enrolled at the gym?
Yes.
And to your understanding, did you ever meet the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum?
Yes.
And when Millie would come to the gym, who would she be brought by?
As far as I knew, she was brought by her mom.
Okay.
Yes.
And when you say as far as I knew she was brought by her mom, what do you mean by that?
Jennifer.
Okay. And would Layla Daniel be present during those times?
Yes. Yes.
Did you ever have an opportunity to observe Millie Place while she was involved in class when she was there?
Only for briefly between walking in the gym and around and visually looking over and then going to my office. I didn't really sit in on the actual classes. So usually I was coming into work during that time, and would just be going straight to the office and would be visually seeing what was going on, or kids in classes, or parents on the bench, that type of thing.
What about Layla Daniel? Did you ever have an opportunity to observe her during the times that Millie would be in class?
I didn't observe her like in the gym.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I mean. Let me ask you this.
I didn't observe her in a class ever.
Okay. Did you ever observe her in the inside of the gym area where class would be going on?
No.
Okay. And were you involved actively teaching these classes during the time that they would be going on?
No.
Do you recall ever getting any reports in regards to Millie injuring herself at Gym Tech?
No, ma'am.
Was ever any injury reports filled out?
No, ma'am.
And what about Layla Daniel? What was your interaction with her?
I met her when Jennifer had come to the office inquiring about wanting, my office manager, Tricia, had called me asking if it was okay to do a 6-month out billing. She wanted my approval if that was okay to do that. She explained there was a defect situation, and would that be okay? And I said, yes, absolutely, that would be fine. I came in one day and Jennifer was there trying to handle the paperwork with Tricia in the office, and that was my first encounter with her and Layla at that time.
Do you recall what day that was?
I believe it was November 2nd.
And where were you at when you encountered the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum?
So I was actually in my office, so there's a window, so you have to go out of the office to the main lobby area, and there was just a window there. And she was trying to handle paperwork with Tricia, and I could just heard Layla crying during that time, and I was on the opposite side.
When you say it's a window outside, is I guess the gym area where kids will be having class or practicing, is that in a separate area from where the office area is?
Yes, ma'am, separate area. So we have a large lobby with some offices within that lobby, and then we have separate doors that enter actually into the training facility.
Okay. And you said that you observed the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum, with Layla.
Yes, ma'am.
And what was Layla doing when you observed her?
She was crying, just crying and really upset, and she was trying to handle business, and I just naturally kind of take the kids, and I know as a parent, if you're trying to take care of some things, your child's crying, I just kind of went around the corner to calm or comfort or cheer her up.
And what happened when you went around the corner to cheer Layla up?
I went around the corner and noticed she, had a cast on, and she was just kind of continuously crying, and I just said, oh my goodness, and it's okay, and I said, wow, what happened? That's a big cast, just kind of talking to her like that, and asked, and I didn't really get a reply just other than, oh, she's just upset because the doctor said she needs to walk on it, and she's mad because she doesn't want to walk.
Who were you asking about what happened? Were you talking to Layla when you asked about what happened, or were you talking to the defendant?
I was kind of looking at both, and kind of looked up, at the mom, and she was talking to the office manager, and then just turned around and gave me the reply and just said she's mad, she doesn't want to walk on it, but the doctor said she needs to get used to walking on it, and she spoke that directly to me.
Did she ever mention that the injury had occurred at Gym Tech?
No.
What happened after, I guess, were you able to calm Layla down?
A little bit. She kind of calmed down a little bit, and she and I were kind of talking, and I was just trying to play with her, and Jennifer, I guess, finished up her paperwork and got all that done, and, explained, I guess she was not going to be doing any classes or whatever, and then I just said, I introduced myself to her. I said, I'm Maria Matheson, I'm the owner, so if you ever need anything, just let me know. Excited you guys are here, and that was pretty much it.
And at the point that you introduced yourself as the owner, did she ever mention about the injury of Layla occurring at the gym?
No, ma'am.
Where was Millie during this interaction? Was she there?
She would have been in class.
At some point, did I guess my office come out and ask you to do a video of a mommy and tot class for us.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'm showing you what's marked as State's Exhibit 197. Do you recognize that?
Yes, ma'am.
How are you able to recognize it?
I initialed it the moment that they did the video and did the disc, and they asked me to view it, and then I initialed and dated it.
Were there any changes or deletions or modifications to it?
No, ma'am.
State would ask the State's Exhibit 197 be admitted into evidence for demonstrative purposes.
So objection would be whether it was done during the time frame of 2015, if it wasn't, I would object to it.
I can lay a little bit further foundation. When we asked you to do this demo, was it in conjunction with how class was run in 2015?
Yes, ma'am.
Had y'all made any changes about how you run a parent-taught class since 2015?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I'd ask that State's Exhibit 197 be admitted.
It's admitted.
Thank you. May it be published.
You may.
While we're trying to work on the sound, can you tell me what we're looking at in that first video, Ms. Matheson?
So that's a parent-assisted class, so if you can see, that's the parent there helping. So she's reaching to the bar, and then the parent's trying to assist her into grabbing the block with her legs, and there again to try to lift it with her legs or work on that core strength. But there again, like you can see, if they weren't able to reach the bar, there would be another mat up underneath them so they could actually reach up to the bar. But you want the child to be able to reach onto that bar and hold. And there again, the parent's right there with them, assisting them through that skill.
And when you did the demo, did you do a whole class, or how did you go about doing these demonstrations for us?
This was actually a class that was in progress that was videoed.
And before you talked about doing various different, you said the beams, that was a beam cycle. Would the kids go through the same cycle every class?
So usually they're going to hit anywhere from 3 to 4 what I would call stations at a time. So like a beam station, a bar station, and like a tumble station. Okay, so each station they're going to spend maybe 10 minutes at a station, depending on how the class is going with the children listening and following direction and all that. As they get a little anxious, then we might move on to another station to redirect them.
And I guess, do you do the same stations for every class, or does it change from week to week as to what you're?
We do have lesson plans, so typically every 2 weeks, the lesson plan will change.
And who, I guess, who comes up with that lesson plan?
So under, there is called a hands-on training where you can actually purchase flip preschool training. You can actually purchase lesson plans. So we have lesson plans that we actually purchase. And there's some you can purchase through USA Gymnastics as well. So we would go buy those lesson plans and just redo them. They have like actually themed months and different things like that.
In the video we were watching just a few minutes ago, what age group of class is that?
The one that we just had up was a parent and taught
Parent
class.
taught class. And what are the ages for that parent and taught class?
18 months to age 3. So they can't go into class by themselves till they're 3.
So if Layla was enrolled at Gym Tech during the period of time of 2015, if she was 2 years old, she would have been attending in that type of class. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, correct. She would have to attend a actual parent and taught class, a parent assisted class.
Now, prior to the parents coming into the class, are they given any training of how to work with their kids, how to hold them, or anything like that during the time that they will be participating in the class with the kids?
Yes, so what's going to happen is when they come in and before the coach does the station, the coach is going to show the parents what is going on at each station. For instance, if they were working on forward walks, they might say down beam 1 is going to be a forward walk, down beam 2 is going to be sideways, down beam 3 is going to be a backwards walk, and beam 4 will be a spotted kicks with the coach. So they're going to let the parent know what to do. If it's like forward rolls or something like that, then they're going to let them know to support the head. But generally, we try to let the staff do anything that needs to be spotted.
Yeah, take person, I think we're good.
Okay.
And how many videos did you show me? So what were we observing in that second video?
So that would have been working on a front support, and as you can see, there was another elevated mat up underneath of that so that her feet could still make sure that they were coming down. So being as she was pressing up and going slightly above the bar in a front support, you wanted to make sure there was another mat there so she didn't have, if she was to come off of the bar, it wasn't as far of a drop down to the other mat. So that was just basically working on a front support. And they're again supported by the parent, holding at the waist, supporting the front support, and helping them down off of the bar.
Is that the same thing we just looked at?
Yes, ma'am. So the parent's supporting underneath the arm, making sure that the child's coming down safely off of the bar. Are you wanting me to explain these? I'm sorry.
So is that the same, trying to get that child?
So that child was a little bit smaller, so if you could see, the actual coach was there trying to show how to grip the bar. He wasn't quite realizing how he needed to grab onto the bar. So she's helping, trying to show him how to grab onto the bar.
And was that, is that with the same mat setup that you were talking about before?
Yes, and there again, as you can see, he's right there at height of the bar. That's why the additional mat is set up underneath of him. So there's actually 2 mats there.
Do you recall how many kids were in this class?
I believe about 3 or 4 maybe.
So what are we observing in that video?
So in the scarf, it's basically trying to teach a child how to grip an object with their feet, use that cord to lift their toes up, which would be another skill as they advance on. They would then probably in the following 2-week lesson plan, it might have been where they grip the bar instead of the block, they're grabbing onto the scarf and trying to pull their toes up holding the scarf. So that was basically just a core strength training, piking up, grabbing an object.
And what are we observing in that video?
That's a balance beam rotation. So as you can see, the beam that's inclined, that's actually the coach instructor that's with the child there. So they had to walk up an incline beam just to get them used to the height. And then they were able to tap or grab the balloon or kind of play with the balloon once they made it to the end of the beam.
And what were we observing in that one?
That's a tumbling station. So there again, just working on strength training, motions. They're incline again, inverted, like an inverted drill on which that round dome is a mushroom. Getting the child used to going upside down. If you saw, then they went to the incline mat where they inverted and actually rolled over with the coach. So there, that's an inversion drill. That was a cartwheel, so the other mat that you could see. The first two, what we call our French fries that were on the floor, there again, that's an inversion. Going, placing the hands down, being able to hop over a French fry. And then the next one was going into working on like a cartwheel, trying to teach them like a cartwheel. So feet down, hands down, and then a hop back over to the feet, which is there again also an inverted drill. So that's a vault drill. So they're learning how to run down the vault runway, jumping off of the vault, of course, onto a mat. And then that was probably crawling down or hopping down the yellow line across the hearts and back around.
What's depicted in that video?
Excuse me?
What was shown in that video?
That was just a view of the entire, pretty much the entire facility where training's going on. There were a few of the competitive athletes in there, other recreational classes that were going on, tumbling class. There was a station on the tumble track, and it looked like regular classes running on the opposite floor as well. And then parents' observation area.
Do they ever, the classes, the competitive team or recreation, are they ever intermingling or mixing together while they're there inside the gym? Like, are they working on the same equipment at the same time?
Not the same equipment at the exact same time, no.
In that video?
That was team training on the actual floor. On the trampoline area was another class that was going on. I can tell that because it's mostly boys. So, and then on the opposite floor it looked like another team training group, and then there was recreational class.
And would the parent-taught class ever be over on that side of the room?
No, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Nothing further at this time from the city.
One second, please. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a request for a 5-minute break. I'm going to grant it. So just take us the opportunity for a stretch break. We'll see you back in a 4-minute moment. Thank you. Okay, any housekeeping from anybody?
I don't think so. I'd love to know about what we discussed at the bench.
Okay, and I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'd love to know about the X-ray matter, so I don't think they had any further inquiries about that.
And what did you say? I'm sorry.
Sure.
What did you tell them?
Sure, just that they were, that the court had no objection to them showing the X-rays.
That's correct.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You can take a stretch break too.